Casual here. For those of you who watched my Technomancer build guides, you'll know that I don't like to follow the herd. Almost all build guides for the Devastator are either top tree firepower builds or bottom tree anomaly power builds that focus on bleed or seismic skills. So naturally, I decided to pick neither of these, and I've come up with a middle tree build with which I got to CT15 solo and have run CT15 golds. With this build I can face tank everything in the game while still putting out solid damage numbers. In this video I'll be covering a no legendary build that got me to CT15 and also the build I now run to get CT15 golds. I'll put up a summary of the builds at the end of the video. Use the chapters to jump to the sections you are most interested in. Let's get into it. While this is a middle tree build, you can't get to CT15 solo by putting points purely into the middle tree. While you'll be largely unkillable if you do, your damage output just won't be strong enough to hit gold on CT14. The best option I found was to buff your anomaly power, seismic cooldowns and resistance piercing in order to make your skills more effective, which keys into how this build works. The ultimate ability of the middle tree is the ambitiously named Mighty Tank, which increases your firepower and anomaly power by 5% of your armour, up to a 40% cap based on the base values of those stats. I personally think that these percentages are a little low and hope that the developers buff them. The focus of the build then is to buff armour as much as possible while still having high enough firepower and anomaly power to take advantage of this. Armour, resistance and health are all buffed through the middle tree, and at close range you are a monster due to through the mob, resist the mob and the modest overlord of the battleground. The Devastator may fall short in some areas, but nails it on ability names. Stone Circle makes these abilities even more effective, while Unbroken Vow ensures that even when you go down you bounce right back up. Outrider Commander is an awesome ability for team play, reducing the amount of time you have to spend picking up those squishy teammates you are playing with. With my final points I picked up Anomaly Bullets so that I could keep the base value of firepower up without having to spec into it. With these abilities my base stats are pretty solid, my physical damage reduction and resistance are definitely in a good place, and I have very strong healing. With the mods and skills I'm using though, I can get these stats off the charts when everything procs. The primary skill for this build is Earthquake, which deals good damage and interrupts enemies in front of me. Gravity Leap and Tremor are built into the rotation to deal damage and very importantly heal me up. You should be in close range at all times, and so you are going to be taking a lot of damage, even with all the armour and resistance you are running, so being able to keep your health up is critical to the build's viability. Let's have a look at gear and mods and how these synergise with your skills to get those crazy high stats. I'm going to start off with the levelling build I used, which is level 49 gear and got me to CT15 solo. I'm not using any legendaries or tier 3 mods in this build, so pretty much everyone should be able to build this. There are 3 mods that are absolutely essential for this build. Armour Boost gives me 5000 armour for every enemy hit by Earthquake and can stack up to 10 times, and Panzer Drain steals 33% of the armour of enemies that you hit. I've also modded Extra Quake, which allows me to double tap Earthquake. In theory these 3 combined shouldn't give us the sort of armour numbers that I showed you, but it does. The way these are interacting is clearly multiplicative in some way that I'm not sure was originally intended, but I'm not going to argue against it. I mentioned before that I'm using Gravity Leap and Tremor for healing. Life Absorption adds a healing element to Gravity Leap, and Human Fortress buffs the healing done by Tremor. I have buffed my damage dealing through 4 mods. Seismic Impulse adds AoE damage that is up all the time. Untamed Power adds further AoE, which triggers every time I activate a skill and scales off my anomaly power. Human Comet provides a knife buff to the damage done by Gravity Leap, and Ground Crush does the same for Earthquake. My final armour mod is Perseverance Shield, my oh shit damage mitigation mod that with Unbroken Vow ensures that I almost never go down. In terms of stats, I picked up 3 pieces with anomaly power and 2 with bonus firepower. In my levelling build I tried to keep my firepower and anomaly power pretty even, so that they received the maximum they could from the Mighty Tank buff. I don't think that is important though, and stacking more anomaly power would work just as well. Your other stats should be a combination of extra healing, cooldown reduction and close range damage, with the first 2 being the priority. Once you have enough healing though, start buffing close range damage. Status power and long range damage should be avoided as you aren't doing any damage that would benefit from them. On my main weapons I'm running 2 damage related mods. Death Chains is one of the best sustained damage dealing mods you can use. Claymore is solid single target damage, while Anomaly and Enhancement works well with this build given the buffs to Anomaly Power that you get. The weapons themselves are not that important, go with what you like. Finally, on my sidearm I am running Clip Combustion, which is a mini, and I really mean mini, Moaning Winds. Stay with me for a demonstration of how to use this later. So that's the leveling build that I used to get to CT15. Let's have a look now at the version I am currently using for CT15 content. The main thing to note is that armor wise there isn't a massive difference between the two builds. The one legendary item I'm using is certainly not essential, and an epic piece would work just as well here. I'm using just 3 tier 3 mods on my armour. Anomaly Echo to buff my Anomaly Power and Firepower on skill activation, Second Quake which allows me to use Earthquake 3 times before its cooldown, and the fan favourite Captain Hunter which buffs damage to elites by 25%. I dropped Seismic Impulse, Human Fortress and Human Comet for these. Earthquake is the big damage dealer in this build, and so dropping these and picking up tier 3 buffs maximises my damage output. In terms of stats, I have switched entirely to Anomaly Power to buff Earthquake even further, have cooldown reduction on every piece, and I'm running 4 healing stats which keeps me up nicely. The big difference in the builds is the weapons. I'm running Death Shield and Roaring Umbra, both modded with Fortress. Fortress is a huge boost to the build with its 43% buff to all damage, Sandstorm, a single target mod which comes from Air of the Desert, and Kinetic Stomp which does very good AoE damage. My sidearm is a key part of my build. I'm using the legendary pistols Torment and Agony with the mods Moaning Winds and Clip Combustion, both of which do damage on reload. Now it is an option to run double shotguns with this build using one with Moaning Winds. There is a trick to proc this and the same mod on your sidearm every 8 seconds. Firstly empty the magazine of both guns and swap back to your main weapon before they can reload. Swap weapons and the first Moaning Winds procs. Then swap to your sidearm and the second Moaning Winds procs immediately, doing a combined near 1 million of damage. Make sure that you swap back to your main weapons before they reload and you'll be good to go in another 8 seconds. It takes a little bit of practice to get this right, but it is definitely worth it. While this build works well in solo play, where it shines is in team play, particularly if you are playing with friends who have the brains to realise that having someone tank elites lets the whole team do way more damage. The last time I checked, DPS is pretty low when you are dead, which is what people spend a lot of time doing when everyone runs a glass cannon build. The playstyle is pretty simple. Get in close range and pop your Earthquake 3 times. Ideally you'll be close enough to also hit enemies with your Untamed Power AoE. Then hit Tremor or Gravity Leap, but not both. This does damage and heals you up. Use Death Shield to heal you up further if you need it, and apply single target damage, or use Roaring Umbra for AoE damage. Pop your Moaning Winds and by then Earthquake should be back up. Hit this again 3 times followed by the other skill that should be up, and keep on repeating until everything is dead. Until next time, Casual out.